We are here with Taylor today. Taylor and I have had a few awesome conversations previously, and she does great work in her line in field. But ultimately, I want to give the spotlight to her, share a little bit more about her story, her journey, and kind of just a little bit more about her personally. But Taylor, kind of to get things started, do you mind kind of walking us through kind of the journey into mental performance and what initially sparked that interest for you?
Yes. Hello, hello. Let's see here. My original journey into mental health. I'm going to be completely honest with you. It was a knack. It was just a knack. I found out at a very, very, very early age that a lot of people felt comfortable telling me things, even when they probably shouldn't have. And I was just a person that I guess a lot of people gravitated towards. I originally was going to be a lawyer. Hard to fathom that now, but I was really going to be a lawyer, and then I figured out, wow, I really don't like to argue too much because after a while I'll just be like, you got it. Oh, I decided to kind of hone in on the ability that I have to talk to people and try to relate to people as much as possible. Another personal facet of mine, I was always trying to be the mediator in a lot of different situations, trying to see both sides of different things and strike a balance, which is what plays a big part of my practice now. I'm a pre-licensed therapist. I'm a cognitive and mental health performance coach. I have an independent practice. I work for a few different companies, most notably being the Center for Autism. And over the summer, I worked with the University of Pennsylvania, the graduate school education, to do a bunch of different summer camps and mental health resources for all the kiddos in the Philadelphia community, which I reside. So I try to make sure that I bring all of what got me here into my work. And a big part of what got me here is literally my personality and me figuring out who I was as a person when I was growing up. And I figured out, hey, if you feel like divulging, I will be here to listen because obviously you needed to tell somebody. And that's okay. And I felt like if you entrusted me with whatever it is that you wanted to tell me, then I should be honored enough to sit here and listen. And one thing I started doing not recently, but probably a little like maybe halfway on, instead of giving unsolicited advice like most people do, like as the therapy friend or the person you go to in that type of friend group. Now, because it's my job, I'll ask the question, did you want me to just listen or did you want me to respond? And that gives people the choice to be like, huh, I don't know. You know what? Go ahead and respond. I need you to tell me something. So I'm just like, okay. So that's where it kind of sparked. And then I mostly work with athletes when I'm not working with kiddos. So being in high school, I got a lot of exposure being around all of the different teams. I was always a person who wanted to have a bunch of different school spirit activities. My mom, if you ask my mom, she'll tell you, I don't know where you got that from because I didn't do that. So I was always around being in a I guess some type of community based setting and a lot of teams, whether it be high school, little leagues, like AAU, whatever, even all the way up until when I got into college, it was always some type of like team oriented community that I really just kind of found my niche in. So I figured, why not bridge the two? And that's how we got here.
That's awesome. And to your point too, I've recounted so many times where I talk to somebody, and to your point, it's like sometimes I just need to talk to somebody almost to work things through in my own head, but it's like I just need to verbalize it instead of, have that little voice in my head and start kind of talking through and rationalizing. It's funny how that works. And I probably do that way too much with my wife. She probably tells me, hey, knock it off, right? You're going way over my head. But no, super, super cool journey, especially kind of this realizing, hey, I got a knack for this, right? People come to me, they trust, what I'm talking about, and just that I'm a listener. And I think being a listener in this day and age is such a, important, valuable skill to have. And looking back, when I was an athlete, one of the things for me was there's always I don't want to say negative connotation, but there was always kind of a misconception kind of when it came to sports psychology, mental performance, mental health, and relations to just sports in general. And maybe that was because I was a guy and surrounded by 40 other guys in the locker room, and that just wasn't something that was very common for us to talk about. But for you, Taylor, what have you kind of seen as misconceptions with either, individuals that you worked with previously or kind of just the community in general within, the mental performance, sports psychology, and mental health in relations to athletics?
Two things. Two things are the most prominent that come to my head. They live there rent free, and I have to battle it every single day in my work. The first thing is the fact that everybody thinks that they're special. And I mean that in the most like positive yet negative way, because of course, everybody is unique in their own right, but everybody thinks that whatever they're going through, it's especially happening to them. It's especially doing this. I should especially be able to do this. Why can't I do this and all these other things? And it's like, babes, you're human. Like, it's okay. You don't have to know how to do everything. Even if you did know how to do something previously, you don't. Times change. A lot of different things are factored into why you can't do it. And people don't always look at the broader scope as to why they might not be able to do something. I'm victim to that myself. Sometimes I'll be like, damn, why can't I do that? Oh, well, I hope we can curse on here, but dang, why can't I do this? Like what is going on? I used to be able to do this so much. Like in college, I used to be able to go from 6 or 7 a.m., depending on if my coach had a trigger happy finger to tell us to come to practice. And I held down a full class load, and I was the leader of study hall and athletic program. So I was going from 6 or 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I used to be able to do that on a couple of chai lattes and some pecan twirls. Like, but now I can't do that anymore. And it's like, dang, I used to be able to knock this out in college. Why can't I do this? Well, things have changed. We went through a whole pandemic. I got older, like your priorities shift. You've gone through some major life transitions, and I have to realize what I'm capable of now. And that's a part of what I try to do for other people. And it's like what you're going through, you're not the only person who's going through it. You're not the only person who's gone through it. You're not going to be the last person to go through it. So it's okay to not be special in that regard. Like you are normal. This is common. Like this is something that everybody will go through in some form of fashion in their own right. And you don't have to feel singled out, isolated, or alone, thinking that this is something that only you should know how to do, or you should especially have not done whatever it was that you did, like stuff like that. And it's like, I get it a lot with my athletes because they don't always know how to conceptualize the fact that I am this type of person on the field, on the court, on whatever, but I can't do these simple tasks. Well, okay, you can't do those simple tasks. First of all, giving you the reassurance that's okay. Let's figure out why you can't do those simple tasks and try to actually hone in on what the root cause of that is so that we can work up to you being able to do those simple tasks. And if we get some bumps and some hiccups along the way, then we'll fix those too. Like it's okay. That is the biggest message. It's okay. You're not special. It's okay. So between that one being the first one and the other one being in the community in general, like especially in a lot of communities of color, like it's closeted people. It touches back on what you said. A lot of people don't want to talk about the fact that they might want to talk to somebody, or a lot of people might go with the whole I don't want to air my dirty laundry. I'll suck it up and keep it pushing, thug it out. Like, that's okay for some situations, because some situations you actually do need to hunker down and muscle through. But in a lot of other situations, you need to have discernment to figure out which one it is that you have to do. And if you tried what you tried to do, hunker down and muscle through, it didn't work for you. Okay, so let's try something else. And if that something else is, I need to talk to somebody. I need to release this emotion. I need to do this thing. I need some type of therapy. People equate therapy with big Freudian sit back on the couch and think about your hopes and your dreams and have somebody write down a whole bunch of notes about you. That is not what therapy can look like. It can look like that if you wanted to, but that's not the only way that therapy looks. Therapy could look like me and you going on a walk somewhere and in a secluded area because you know patient doctor confidentiality. But like therapy can look like us doing an activity together that will help you. Therapy can look like art. Therapy can look like making music. It can look like whatever you want it to. A big part of my job, we don't, especially as a therapist, we do not tailor the client to fit the therapy. We tailor the therapy to fit the client. So that a big 1-2 with a little sub asterisk in there on some of the biggest misconceptions that I have to fight through every single day in my work, especially because in this community and a lot of communities I've been in, I work with either athletes or people of color or both. So it's just a big cycle.
Yeah, and to your point, I really like the part around, hey, right? Like I think when we look at therapy, we think we're gonna shut the door, you're in this little room and you're on a couch, they're on a chair, and now we talk for 45 minutes to an hour and that's it. But to your point, we're starting to see a lot more of let's go on a walk, let's go do an activity, right? Something that kind of breaks down that barrier, makes it a little bit more comfortable for, whether it's the athlete or the individual that's being worked with and kind of bring down their guard a little bit for because I know for myself to this day it's two places that I hate going, dentist and doctor's office, right? And when I go there I'm like I don't want to be here, like let me just get out of here as fast as possible. And I think a lot of times athletes are like that in those kind of closed door settings. It's like, all right, like let's see what we can kind of do, whether it's athletically or to your point being outside, something that can hopefully make them a little bit more eager to have those conversations and actually take in what's going on. But looking back, I know I keep relating things back to when I was in college, but when I was playing baseball, I swear like the biggest thing for me was pressure, right? It was pressure to perform, whether it was a big moment or not, pressure to be a starter, pressure to keep the scholarship, like you name it, right? So many pressures of being just a general athlete. And for you, Taylor, what are some of the common, mental challenges or hurdles that a lot of the athletes that you work with have, right? I know it's a broad question because everybody has kind of their own little box as far as, hey, I'm struggling with this, I'm going through this. This is kind of a challenge for myself. But if you had to pick, one, two, three items that have been more predominant than the other, what would those be?
I would probably go with one of the ones, well, the one that you said as being one of the ones I would choose. Pressure. Pressure is really big. If it's not pressure, it's balance. Trying to strike a really good balance that works for you, as an athlete, as an individual, as, just like a person who is a part of a team, and a person who is also a student. Because, while you are, especially in college, while you are a student, you are also an athlete. And oftentimes you can't have, or you can't be one without the other. So the third one, I would probably say comparison. Comparison is a really big one too. So like to touch on the first one for pressure, there are so many pressures that a lot of athletes get, and that's one of the prime reasons I chose to work with this population in the first place, because people don't actually realize, and I've had to explain this to like strangers, people don't realize that like athletes are people, okay? And they go through a specific type of pressure that the normal person doesn't go through. What were we called in college? Because even though I work with so many athletes, I was never on the team in college. Ooh, NARPs, non-athletic regular person. So when NARPs have their own set of pressures as being a college student, being a person who's both like trying to strike a balance between academics and, personal life, athletes have to do the same thing. But as striking a balance between academics, your personal life, and your sport, a lot of times, especially at the college that I went to and the athletes that I've encountered, they deal with a lot of coaches saying, when you get on this court, you need to give a whole 110%. Everything needs to be left on the court, or everything needs to be left on the field. And while that's okay, that's true. You want to give your all to your sport. If you give your all to your sport for that 40 minutes or that 2 hours that you play the game, what else are you gonna have left to give to yourself? You have to recharge. You have to do all these different things. So that was more so on the balance part. The pressure comes from the actually striking a balance a lot of the times, because you want to do well in your sport. Some want to do well in their academics. Some just want to get by. And you know what? Hey, whichever one works for you. But then you also have 50 million other things going on in your personal life, whether you want to form relationships, whether they be romantic or platonic, whether you want to maintain those relationships, whether you have different transitions that's going on back at home, if you have all these other things going on that you don't necessarily either know how to deal with because they're a first, or you never knew how to deal with because it was always hard for you, or you're now knowing that you can't deal with it because you have all of these other things that have taken a priority. So the pressure of trying to keep everything on the up and up and give everybody what they want so that you can keep on doing what it is that you want to do, that's a lot of pressure. That is a lot of pressure for not even just an athlete, just a person, period. So that specialized set of a perfect trifecta, people don't actually realize that that is tough. Like it can almost be considered for some people traumatic because of the different like various things that a person can go through and how they may or may not be able to deal with it. And then of course comparison comes in because now you seeing your other teammates over here dealing with what seems like the exact same thing as you, but you like, damn, I can't do that. Why can they do that and I can't do it? And now you're like, I don't know what's wrong with me because I can't handle this the same way that they can. But in all reality, everybody is carrying their own like burdens to bear, and you have to do what's best for you. But a lot of people don't know what that is. So that's where my job comes in. But those three right there, those are the biggest barriers and mental health challenges that I've seen across almost all the athletes that I've ever worked with. If it's not pressure, it's balance. If it's not balance, it's comparison. A combination of the three or all three. So